Wagwan gang, I decorated these three realistic cakes in just 36 hours, and it was one of the most stressful experiences I've ever had in cake decorating. And when I say stressful, I really mean stressful. Three completely different realistic cakes back to back with deadlines that weren't moving no matter how tired I got. And the first thing I did was get the structure ready, and once the structure were ready, it was time to bring each design to life. So I started with the sewing machine first. And for this sewing machine cake, the first step was stacking the cake layers and building the basic shape. And at this stage, it looked nothing like a sewing machine. It was just like a series of cake blocks stacked together. So I carefully carved and trimmed away the excess cake. And this is one of my favorite parts of realistic cake making, because that's when the transformation really begins. And once I was happy with the shape, I covered everything in pink fondant. After that, I added the good decoration, the patterns, the sideways, and all those tiny pieces that makes a sewing machine looks like a sewing machine. And one thing I've learned about realistic cake is that people notice the smallest details. So if one part looks off, the entire illusion can fall apart, and that's why I spent so much time adjusting and refining every section before moving on. And once the main body was finished, I added the thread and the measuring tape and also the finishing touches around the base. And slowly it started looking less like cake and more like an actual sewing machine sitting on the table. After that, I went ahead to decorate the second cake, and the first thing I need to do is build the foundation first. So I started by stacking the cake layers and securing everything in place to create the basic dress shape. And at this stage, it definitely didn't look glamorous. It was just a rough structure waiting to be transformed. So after stacking, I carved the cake to refine the silhouette and create a more natural body shape. And once I was happy with the proportion, I covered everything with a smooth crumb coat to lock in all the crumbs and give me a clean surface to work on. And with the structure complete, I went ahead to cover the cake with fondant. And this cake was completely different because instead of focusing on mechanical details like the sewing machine cake, I had to focus on fashion and texture for this one. So after covering the cake with fondant, I started building the design of the dress itself. Then I added the feathered sections on both sides of the dress, which instantly gave it more movement and drama. And after that, I added lace inspired details all over the dress and carefully arranged the beadwork to create those beautiful draped patterns flowing down the gown. And that was the moment the cake really came to life. And honestly, this part took way longer than it looks because every single strand had to be placed individually, and even though it seemed repetitive, those little details are what brought the entire design together. And what I love about dress cakes is that they make you think like a fashion designer instead of a baker. So every detail had to complement the next one, and every element had to feel intentional. And after hours of work, it was time to move on to the final cake, which is the agbada cake. And honestly, this cake nearly ended my sanity because after stacking the cake, I decided to take a short break before continuing the decoration. And when I came back, the entire cake had fallen over. And at that moment, I just stood there staring at the cake because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But with delivery time getting closer, I didn't have the luxury of stressing over it. So I started all over again. And after rebuilding the cake, I covered it with fondant, added the silver traditional pattern, created the flowing agbada layers, and draped the fabric effect over the shoulder. Then I finished everything off with the cap and the beaded necklace, which really completed the traditional look. And somehow, despite the collapse, the pressure, and the lack of sleep, the cake turned out exactly the way I wanted it. And when I say I decorated these three cakes in 36 hours, that doesn't include the baking, making the fondant, setting up the structure, and doing all the basic preparation work behind the scenes. So while the decorating alone took 36 hours, the entire process for all three cakes actually took about 5 days from start to finish. And by the end of it all, I was completely exhausted, but seeing all three cakes finished and ready for delivery made every stressful moment worth it. So if you like this video, please like, share, and drop a comment. And if you would like to see more videos like this from me, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. I will see you in the next video. Mr. Sugar Cakes signing out.